Okay, let us start. So we are today talking about one image, which is this one. I'm going to just turn comments off as well. Although it's lovely to see all your comments, but I know it can be a bit distracting because today we are looking a little bit more in depth at a portrait, and what a portrait this is. I mean, this is gonna make an impact, isn't it? Hi, I've just got this over my fireplace. I think we can quite confidently say that this lady is not a shy lady. Let's just put it that way. So this is in the National Gallery in London, and it is titled A Blonde Woman, because even though it was very probably a portrait, it's very likely that it was a commission. In fact, it was almost certainly a commission. We don't quite know who this lady was. It was painted by an artist called Farmer Vecchio. He was a farmer, and he had a great sideline in painting Venetian women. Palma Vecchio, and he worked in Venice. So this lady is a Venetian woman. And as I said, this is making quite a statement as a portrait. And I'm going to say that she is probably not a sort of, a lady who is the noble classes, married to a grand lord or something. I think, and she's probably not a nun either. I'm going to say that she's probably a courtesan. Now, I know that you might be thinking, how on earth do you feel, or why on earth do you feel that she might be a courtesan? Well, there's one little thing that I think really gives the game away. And that is, of course, her gaze. The way that she's looking out at the painting. I mean, isn't she terribly flirtatious? That's quite a direct gaze, isn't it? She's not coy, let's put it that way. She's in fact quite bold, really, in fact. And of course there's the other thing. That is the fact that, she seems to have not noticed that she's got a bit of a wardrobe malfunction going on. Shall we call it a wardrobe malfunction? Or, was it accidentally on purpose that, that beautiful blue ribbon on that lovely white chemise has just come undone and just, whoops-a-daisy, exposed her lovely white, I'm getting all my words wrong, white breast, with that lovely little pink nipple, beautifully, by the way, framed by the said blue ribbon and by this curve of her chemise. So I feel like this is a fairly deliberate, fairly deliberate design composition on behalf of the artist, and very much, I'm going to say, in collaboration and in agreement with this lovely blonde woman. Now she's also carrying, you might notice, and actually the gaze is quite clever, all joking apart, because it takes you over to the left side of the painting as we're looking at it, and so to her right breast. So because she's looking over there, you're sort of directed to that side, and then you look down and you have this exposed breast, a little bit hard to miss, and then the posy of flowers that she's holding beneath the breast, which you might think, that's nice, you know, a lovely innocent posy of flowers. Yeah, that is nice. And it is a lovely posy of flowers. I particularly like the way actually that the flowers are picking up the colours of her, the other colours in the painting. I'm just going to show you a close-up of the flowers so you can see them a bit better there. So you've got blue, which are forget-me-nots, which basically, and all the flowers of course have meanings, so forget-me-nots basically is what it says on the tin, really, don't forget me, you know, the flowers of remembrance, you know, and in the way that, you know, I'm giving you these because I really, really, really want to make my mark on you. I don't want you to forget me at all. And then buttercups, the goldeny ones are buttercups, which go perfectly with her hair, which obviously you can't see because this is a close-up at the moment, but then her jewellery as well. She's got some bracelets on her other wrist, but then there's this little ring here on her middle finger. So sort of picking up the golden colours there, and then the green obviously with her dress, and then the pinky purpley, so the buttercups, by the way, sort of they pertain to charm, quite sort of dazzling charm, which I think it's fairly obvious that this lady has in abundance. And then the primrose, the pinky flowers are primroses, of course, and they echo her nipple, really, don't they? So all of those flowers have meanings. So primrose, oops, I'm just going to share the same thing with you. Let's go back to that one. That's it. So all of those flowers have meaning. Primrose, prima rosa, the first roses of spring. Now, if you were thinking, you know, yes, okay, so these flowers have meanings, and yes, okay, she's got quite a direct gaze, and yes, okay, she happens to be exposing a breast, you know, but kind of who cares? There are a couple more hints that she might be a courtesan that I'm going to put to you. So prima rosa. Okay, so prima rosa, the first flowers of spring, and they were quite widely associated with Flora, the goddess of spring. Now Flora, goddess of spring. Let's just quickly talk about her story, very, very quickly. She was abducted in mythology by Zephyr, the west wind, quite violently abducted by Zephyr, the west wind. And so as a bit of a sorry I violently abducted you, I'm going to give you a beautiful garden. And so Flora basically was a goddess who was associated with gardens and flowers, and actually in particular agricultural crops. So she was a goddess that made things grow. And when I'm saying making things grow, wasn't necessarily just things in the garden that were growing that she was making grow. And so Flora, actually in Renaissance times, was a name that was commonly taken by courtesans. Okay, so there's that. And then let's talk about the hair. So I said that, you know, the beautiful buttercups were picking up, you know, her jewellery. So look at her bangles on her left hand or left wrist. I love the colours in this, which then match can you notice actually in her hair she's got a ribbon. Oh, it's not really a ribbon, it's a scarf. So the bit that's coming down her shoulder here, so you've got part curly hair and then part is a little bit of a scarf, so that all sort of matches in together. And then she has these lovely blonde locks. Okay, I can't see you, but hands up if you think she's a natural blonde. Very, very unlikely. And it was the fashion very much in Venice in the 15th century for women to dye their hair and to dye their hair blonde. It's quite interesting that we've got this link to the goddess Flora, to link to antiquity, but in ancient Rome, if you were a courtesan or a prostitute, then you had to have blonde hair. You had to dye your hair blonde. So that was a thing. So I think that's another link. So yes, her beautiful blonde hair. Maybe she might have smelt a little bit worse than she looks, which is an odd thing to say. But to sort of get the equivalent effect of sun-in, do you remember sun-in? My brother did sun-in when he was about 8 maybe, and he's got darker hair than I have, and it went bright copper. It was maybe not his best look, but there we go. Actually, I'm going to say that, and then I think he might have done it again quite recently, so I shouldn't have said that anyway. So the sort of the 16th century equivalent of sun-in that actually a lot of Venetian women were sporting, or that they were doing, was to use pigeon shit and various other substances, and you would put it on your hair and you would sit around for a while in the sun and you would rinse it off with horse urine. So I'm going to say that she might look nice, but she might smell of, quite literally, of shit. So yes, pigeon shit and horse urine. How completely lovely. That's how they did it in those days. So the evidence that she was a courtesan is, I'm going to say, quite compelling. Sometimes what I didn't mention is that sometimes this painting is also referred to as Flora, so a blonde woman or Flora. So yes, the Greek reference and the reference to classical antiquity with the blonde hair, it's quite overwhelming. So I guess then the question is that who would commission this portrait? Palma Vecchio, he wasn't just some minor artist. This is an expensive work. It's not small, it's quite big. In fact, it's probably almost life-size, if not life-size. I'm thinking it's a while since I've seen it in the flesh, as it were. So yeah, who might commission it? Well, I'm going to give you a bit of a long-winded answer, because to be a courtesan in Venice in the 16th century actually wasn't that bad. Okay, so there were two types of sex workers in a very broad category. There were the prostitutes who hung around by the Rialto Bridge, and they were definitely low grade. Okay, definitely low grade. But then there was a category of courtesan. They were called the honest courtesans. And this category were women who came from quite often merchant or patrician families, so really not poor families, but if families had more than one daughter, if they had several daughters, then this is where things started to get a little bit troublesome, because they would have to marry the daughters off. Okay, there were two choices. The daughters, they couldn't just not be married unless they went into a convent, in which case they would have to pay a dowry. It was a fairly small dowry, but they would still have to pay a dowry. So they could go into a convent, pay a small dowry, okay, that's it. Or they would be married, but to be married, the dowry was considerably bigger. So families could find themselves in the unattractive position of not really having enough money to marry their daughter off to somebody, I was going to say somebody respectable, but actually to anybody at all. And if you've got 3 or 4 daughters, then you're kind of struggling. So the other option was that this young lady could become, instead of marrying, could become a courtesan. And in fact, it was not a bad profession at all, because it often meant that they would earn rather a lot of money. You were quite often, they would become the breadwinners for the entire household. So, that was pretty good. And also, they would mix in quite highfalutin circles. So if you were smart, and a lot of these ladies were, they did have some form of education, they weren't completely uneducated. So if you were smart and you were mixing in the right circles, you could actually lead quite an interesting and quite a nourishing intellectual life, and a life where you had an awful lot more money than if you, for example, I don't know, I guess the third option would be that you stayed in the family home and you were the spinster, and none of your own money, and so were reliant on whoever else you happened to be living with. So it was a job, it was a profession that wasn't really terribly frowned upon, especially because men in 16th century Venice didn't tend to get married until they were in their 30s quite often, and so obviously they couldn't sow their seeds and have dalliances with women that weren't courtesans. That definitely wasn't done. So they definitely had a role in society. So in answer to the Who on Earth commissioned this, it could well have been a wealthy patron. That's entirely possible, because it wasn't wasn't that shameful. I kind of like to think that it was a wealthy patron. I'm thinking back to the Forget-Me-Nots, and I kind of like to think that it was somebody that perhaps Flora, or this blonde woman, was his first lady, and maybe his first sort of love almost, and so he commissioned this to commemorate her. It's also entirely possible that this lady made so much money that she commissioned the portrait herself. That was not uncommon at all. And why would she do that? Well, as a commodity. So it could be, was something that could potentially be bought and sold, especially by a major artist like Palma Vecchio, not Palma Vecchio, Palma Vecchio, or to commemorate her youth and her beauty, that's kind of, I don't know, that there's a quality about that that's a little bit sentimental or touching. This, I know that I'm not going to be this all of my life, and I want to commemorate how I was then. So maybe a lady with a little bit of ambition. An ambitious blonde we've got here. That's what I'm going to say. We've got an ambitious blonde. So this is Palma Vecchio's A Blonde Woman, or Flora, from 1520, and it's in the National Gallery. Okay, I'm going to turn off screen sharing, and I'm going to turn on comments. There we go. Hello Vaki, and hello Steph. I hope you didn't miss too much of our chat about courtesans. Yeah, and interesting. Maybe it was one of the most interesting jobs you could have in 16th century Venice as a woman. Very the grey in the hair must be pigeon droppings. Yes. Did she have grey in her? Hang on, I need to have another look. Yeah. Oh, well, okay, so no, the grey bit there, that's a scarf. But yeah, oh my God, can you imagine? I mean, what a disgusting process. Not ideal. I had a dream the other night, actually, probably while I was thinking about this painting, that the hairdresser kind of somehow, how it happens in dreams, somehow without me knowing, he bleached my hair. And I've never really dyed my hair. So I was like, oh, do you think anyone will notice that I've gone blonde? He was like, no, it looks really natural. What was that about? I don't know. Anyway, thanks for another interesting session, brightening up our day as per usual. Thank you. That's really, really kind of you. Thank you, Aaron. I hope that I have. So now you've got two. So you've got International Klein Blue and a blonde woman as two clues to the theme for this month. I will put it on the Elevenses blog. I will also hopefully save this. It didn't save properly last time. I think Instagram were doing different things. So hopefully it will save properly this time, and you won't get the all of the preamble. Oh, hello, Deborah. Oh, Deborah, I'm only saying that because I can see that on there. That was particularly interesting, thank you. The right white breast, yes. Thank you very much for joining. So it will be all saved on Instagram and on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you go to my website, you can see that too. You can have a look at the Beyond the Cross stuff, Beyond the Cross talks, which are on the website, and the Elevenses blog. But for now, I wish you a really, really happy day. I'm glad I make you see more, Holly. That's really fantastic. Thank you. And I will see you next week from a different location next week. So let's see how that works. Okay, bye. Thanks for joining.